So believe it or not, we actually do research for most of the discussions that we have here on the show. I know it doesn't look like it all the time, but we do. But for some subjects, especially those connected with new technologies and the businesses behind those technologies, it's just a lot faster and easier for us to invite Marcin Kasz to join us here in the studio because he already knows everything that we're going to talk about, everything that we're going to learn, rather, by spending all this time on reading about it. Marcin is a ridiculously informed, knowledgeable technology enthusiast with professional experience in a number of fields, with both mega global giants and small local startups. If it involves wireless technologies, a screen, a microchip, mobile applications, Bluetooth, whatever, Marcin is your guy, and he's back with us today for this episode of the KrakCast. Marcin, welcome back.
Hi, thank you for having me again.
So the last time you were here, we talked about the Polish video game industry, and today we're going to return to a subject that we talk about quite a bit here on our show, which is electric scooters. But today we're going to take kind of a deeper dive and learn more about the industry and the scooters themselves and kind of the players in the Krakow and in the Polish markets for scooters. Why don't you start by taking us through the brands that are available here in Krakow right now? I know another name is coming soon. We'll talk about that a bit later. But as things stand now, beginning of September, who are the players in the on the Krakow market for scooters, and who are the kind of the big money names behind the names that we know from the scooters themselves?
All right, so if we're speaking about Krakow, there are 4 companies at the moment. The first one that started like a year and a half ago is called Hulaj, and it's a Polish company. They have, I don't remember how many scooters exactly, but I believe it's around 100 or maybe a bit less. A few scooters less than 100. The other company is also Polish. It's called Blinky. You've probably seen them around. They also have mopeds, scooters, and when I say scooters, I mean how do you call these? Kick scooters?
Like a moped kind of thing?
No. I'm talking about not mopeds, but
I call them a plague on civilization.
Oh, that too.
You're talking about like the ones that actually you stand on? Or?
Yes,
non-motorized.
Yes. Okay, so straight away we have a terminological difficulty here because there is the English word scooter, which can either mean the thing you stand on and you push along with the other leg, or it can mean a thing like a fashionable Italian kind of.
Okay, let's call
motorized.
that a moped, and let's call the scooter 2 kinds.
The Italians are going to love that.
Screw them. Electrified scooter and a manual scooter.
The way I call it is that the one that you stand on, it's an electric kick scooter, right?
Okay.
Because you have to kick it, and then either the other thing is either a moped or a scooter, just a scooter.
Call them an e-scooter. We'll just settle on that.
Okay, so e-scooters. E-scooters, the ones that you stand on. So let's say that. Okay.
Yeah, the irritating things that are every fucking
ones
where.
the
ones that we hate.
Yeah, so Hulaj is the first one. The other one is Blinky. They have mopeds and e-scooters, and they have around 100 of the e-scooters. And the 2 other ones are global players. The first one that started here, also actually it's a third company that was started their business here in Krakow, is called Hive, and they have around 200 scooters at the moment. And they are actually part of of a joint venture, if you will, between Daimler and BMW. So it's the same app as Free Now. I don't know if you know what Free Now is. Basically, it's like Uber, but for taxis.
It used to be my taxi not long ago.
Exactly. So if we're talking about mega money, this is an app that, I mean, not only Hive, but the whole joint venture received like almost €1 billion in funding from both BMW and Daimler. And the fourth one is probably the largest out of the 4. It's called Bird, and they just started like maybe a few weeks ago. And they right now have around, I believe, 200 scooters. And they're probably the second largest player in the game right now, globally speaking. The largest scooter company is called Lime. And they raised around $900 million in funding globally. They're not available in Krakow. They're available in Warsaw. And they're definitely the leader when it comes to the global stage. Bird is,
So is Lime the brand that we learned a couple of weeks ago has plans to come to the Krakow market? Is that Lime?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I haven't read that myself. I've heard that they're coming, but I bet they're going to come here sooner or later.
Bird is here now or Bird is coming?
Bird is already here.
That was the article we talked about recently.
So about 2 weeks ago, there was a little boy who got run over in the Planta by a scooter, and with the worst timing ever from a PR perspective, the very next day, which brand announced that they were coming to town?
That was Bird.
That was Bird.
Okay, so
Bird.
really bad timing, Bird. But okay, so Bird is here. Lime, we can assume they're going to be here at some point.
I bet they're going to be here. I mean, they're covering every single largest city in the region, so they're already in Warsaw. I think they're going to be here within like a few months or something.
I saw Lime there. They're everywhere in Warsaw a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
So, sorry, did I understand correctly? 3 brands on the street right now, a 4th coming, and a 5th probably coming.
No. There are 4 brands at the moment: Hulai, Blinky, Hive, and Bird.
And
yes.
Bird's available right now on the street? I haven't seen
Yes,
it.
they are.
Okay.
The black and white. They're actually the best scooters out of the 4, in my opinion. They have the best scooters.
And if you're telling me that their inventories are in the hundreds here, that means only a few hundred. That means I think they keep about a third of that on my street. I mean, in front of my building, there's about 8 or 9 of them every morning because they come around with the vans and leave them there, and that annoys the hell out of me.
I mean, what will put things into perspective is like Hive, the second largest company here in Krakow. They have 200 scooters at the moment. We're talking about it's the yellow and black, or like yellow greenish color, right? You know which one I'm talking about.
I know which one.
Okay,
Yeah.
so they have 200 at the moment. They want to have 2,000 units by early next year here in Krakow, and I bet
Wait a second. You said Hulai about 100, Blinky about 100, Hive about 200, Bird about 200. That's 600 altogether.
Yeah.
All 4 brands combined. And then one brand alone plans to have 2,000 next year?
John, I've heard talk that they want to have about all companies together will have around 5,000 when this gets really going in Krakow.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, but the area that they're going to cover is going to be much larger. Right now, we're talking only about the district, the city center here. So anything around the main square, Kazimierz. Actually, each company has a different zone, if you will, a different area that they cover.
Got their own turf.
They're using geofencing to control where the
Basically, yes. I think Hulai has the largest area that they cover, but they have the fewest scooters at the moment.
So we can expect it to go citywide from Nowa Huta to Branowice and everywhere in between?
I bet they're going to cover every single part of the town.
Does Hulai, this is the first company you mentioned, so it's a Polish company. Does Hulai have a hope in hell of staying in this game against these global giants with all this money? Or is there expectation to be bought by somebody else? Or what do you think?
I would expect that they want to be bought. I mean, it's not something out of, both Lime and Bird have bought other companies in the past few months. Most recently, Lime bought a company called Scoot in the US for I don't remember, around $200 million, something like that. I mean, we're talking about really large amounts of money. Yeah. I mean, I'll get into...
The business model makes no sense, though. I mean,
yeah, that's what I wanted to get into.
Get into it then.
Still wasting our time.
I just can't hold back. I just keep trying to figure out how the hell they're going to make money long term with all the hardware, charging, and repair costs. I just don't get it.
I mean, I think they're playing. It's a long, how do you call it in English? Long game, exactly. So they're waiting it out. Basically, right now, I haven't heard of any company that's actually profitable. That's not the main goal. They're making money, but they're burning cash every single month. Every single company does that. So, I mean, the main problem here is, I guess, that the scooters that they buy are low quality. They're very, they're cheap Chinese.
What are we talking, like $400? That type of price range? They're buying them wholesale.
They're probably cheaper when they buy them.
Maybe 200 direct from China.
The average time, on an average, they have to replace their whole fleet every 6 weeks.
Jesus,
what?
Yeah,
fish them out of the river. Yeah.
So because people don't, before we started recording this, I know you guys are against scooters, and the primary reason
you might say that.
Yes, the primary reason is that people are, just they don't really care about what, because
we live in a medieval cobbled street town with narrow side paths. We had enough problems with cyclists in the city before scooterists came along. Let me tell you this.
I understand. I mean, people just, they leave it everywhere. There's a Twitter handle. I forgot what it's called, but it's just a guy taking pictures of scooters in the most random places or taking videos of people. There's a video of a guy throwing scooters into the ocean. He just walks around Venice Beach and just throws them into to like a,
Venice Beach. Now that's like kind of ground zero of scooter culture, right?
Yes. A bird is from Santa
Tell
Monica.
us about the charging wars in Venice Beach. I read a piece about this. It's absolutely fascinating.
I haven't heard of charging wars.
There's gangs that now the money is in the charging. 47% of the cost of these businesses is charging there because they pay people to juice them, the juicers as they call themselves. So at the start that was a nice business. Everyone was picking them up, but then people realised you could actually make real money if you got enough scooters in the back of a van. If you fill up a van overnight, plug them all in, there was serious cash to be made. And of course then people started staking out territory. They had spotters hiding them in bushes, these guys beating
the
each
free
other
market
up on the
at work,
street.
huh?
Yeah, exactly,
And that's probably one of the largest costs that they have right now, the juicers, because they have to pay everyone to either,
half of the costs, basically.
They either charge them, some of them actually fix the scooters as well. I mean, if they're fixable, because if they're not just going to be scrapped and they're going to, buy a new scooter. They're actually like, these companies, Lime, I believe, is investing, and so is Uber, which is now in partnership with Lime. So that's also something that you have to let that sink in. Uber has partnered up with Lime to offer Lime scooters in their app.
Another company that never makes any money.
It is burning mountains of cash here.
Yeah. Like Uber is, I forgot how many, but they burned like $50 million within 6 months or something.
It's
or
crazy.
I don't remember the exact numbers, but yeah, basically they're investing a lot of money in developing autonomous scooters that will either get to a customer if he orders one.
Autonomous scooters, please.
Yeah.
Oh my God, no.
I mean, sorry, but we're getting off track. We're supposed to talk about business, so maybe I'm going to get.
Well, can I ask just
Yeah.
It's funny that the guest is the one who's trying to keep us in line.
a side note? Let me go back to what you mentioned about
we'll talk about whatever we want, man.
the scooters themselves.
Yeah.
Tell us about who's making and designing their own scooters and who's using off the shelf stuff and putting their name on it.
So the majority of the companies, they actually buy scooters by a company called, either it's Ninebot, which is the mother company of another company called Segway. You've probably heard of Segway.
Yeah.
So basically Segway, this is a funny story actually. Segway made a bunch of different vehicles, and a Chinese company called Ninebot copied their stuff, and they grew so large that they actually bought the original company, the Segway. It's another part of Ninebot. Anyway,
he's a very interesting character, Dean Kamen, the guy who invented the Segway.
Yeah, but anyway, so they made the Segway ES2, I believe. That's the most popular model. So Hive uses them, Lime uses them, and they're like, if I have to be honest, they're terrible. They're terrible scooters. It's like they don't have any suspension. They're like it's like a toy. It's made. It's almost as if it's made all of plastic. I can't explain.
You ride a scooter around town.
Yeah,
right?
I do.
How do these scooters ride over the cobbles, over these streets of Krakow? How well are they specified for the Krakow market? I think the first scooter company to nail a decent chunky tire that can, go over cobbles is going to be
I'll answer that
the
question
leading
by
brand.
following up on what he asked me. So there are companies that make their own scooters. Bird is one of them. Bird actually, the scooters that we have here in Krakow are called Bird One, and they are very well-made product. I have to say, they have 10-inch tires, pneumatic tires. They're a bit bulkier. They're heavier. They're also designed for this particular use case, meaning for sharing, for the micromobility sharing economy, whatever you're gonna call it, right? So they actually last for a bit longer, I believe, for 7 to 8 weeks or almost. I mean, they say that it can last a year.
What a miracle that would be.
But I'm not sure entirely if that's true. But the ES2 has never been designed for that use case. It's a commercial product. It's
Josh's
made for
bike was
consumers.
built in the 70s. He still rides it everywhere.
Oh, and remember, this is all about the green way right now. Movement forward.
Yes, nothing more green than shipping in disposable scooters from China by the boatload.
Every 6 weeks.
Okay, but to answer your question, if you ride a Hive scooter, the ES2 on Polish Krakow streets, Krakowian, like here, the experience is terrible. I agree. It's
Stop doing it then.
no, but try using a Bird, and it's a totally different experience. It's still a cobble road, so it's not going to be perfect, but it's we're getting there. So what I'm trying to say is that the stage that we're at right now is, we're talking about early adapters. They're figuring out the business in many ways. I mean, they have in the US, but they're figuring out here. They're testing many things, and they're basically educating the market that there is another way of getting around other than, let's say, public transport and using a car.
Do you think that sticker on the side that says "Do not ride on the sidewalk" is irony or something? Like, you know, that these companies that
it's followed by LOL
plagued our pathways just put that on as a joke to annoy me or something.
That's the other problem of micromobility in general, and scooters in particular, is that they're not being regulated properly in the majority of European countries. The only country that I know of that has officially recognized them as a you know, part of the, let's say, what is it called, like the
transport infrastructure.
There you go, is Germany. So they basically
what a surprise!
What a surprise! And the way that they have official laws that define like how fast you can go and stuff like this. So you can go up to 20 kilometers per hour. You have to have a helmet on, and you can't use sidewalks. In Poland, it's actually up till very recently it's been different. You couldn't use them on the streets. Yeah. You had to use them on sidewalks. So it's very, you know, it's a complicated subject with legally speaking.
Can I make a prediction on that? Sorry to jump in again, because we were talking about this in the show a few weeks ago. I think if you gave Krakow's police force a clear steer on this, on how to prosecute people for using these in the wrong way, that's what they don't have yet. And when they get that, they're gonna sort this problem out.
We put the hammer down on these people.
Because they're a very how would you say, they enforce the rules very strictly on traffic and sidewalk and cyclists.
But what do you say? Once you clarify it for the police, they will gladly step in.
Yes. Oh, definitely. But I'm expecting the same thing as so basically, I compare scooters to electric bicycles because I primarily work with e-bikes at the moment. So e-bikes are like recognized as by the European Union as a vehicle at the moment. There are laws, there are directives that define what an e-bike is, and basically I think that it's going to happen very soon. And then, you know, police, the popo.
You're so street, Marcin, so street.
Oh, shizzle, Marcy.
The pole popo is going to, you know, chase everyone that uses a scooter, not legally.
So we're still, as you mentioned, we're still in kind of an ambiguous kind of development stage here, kind of the Wild West situation, the legal and regulatory environment yet to be defined. We're still in what we can call the asshole stage of a lot of the users. They don't use it in a way that's kind of consistent with the safety of other people on the street. Again, like we said many times, leaving them everywhere. Okay, it's a process. Let's move a little bit forward a little bit, and I want you to explain a term you used a couple of times already, micromobility.
Yes.
What that is, and while doing that, kind of make the case for scooters. Try to explain to people that it's not all assholes leaving them in front of your door. There actually is a place for scooters in the future.
Okay, so micromobility is a very broad term, and there are many different definitions. The most common one is that micromobility vehicles it's a vehicle that weighs less than 500 kilograms, and it solves the last mile or first mile problem. Basically, if you're traveling, let's say that you live outside of a large city like London, and you get it to the city center every morning by train, and then you have to, go around the city somehow, then you use a micromobility vehicle like a scooter or an e-bike or something.
Basically, people use cars because they're not close enough to the station, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah,
this
so
is the problem.
Basically, yes. So my case for micromobility and why I think it's going to be the future is that if you, basically look at what cars have done to the urban environment at the moment. Cities are totally dominated by cars at the moment. If you look at Krakow, which has, by the way, it has never been designed to have as many cars on the street as right now. I don't know if you drive in Krakow, but it's a terrible experience.
No, I use public transport because it's a nightmare to have a car in Krakow. So there's no point.
Exactly.
I live in the city centre. Exactly. I walk or I use public transport.
I think
it's a good system.
It's a terrific system. I agree with you, but more and more people are using cars at the moment, and there are more cars on the street, which actually is it's a big problem. So if you look at the global scale, we have around 1.5 billion cars on streets at the moment. So I'm going to just paint a picture here. 260 million cars are in the US, right? Mm-hmm. There are 8 parking spots for every single car in the US on average. And on average, one parking spot is 6 meters by 3 meters. So that's how many? That's 18 square meters, right?
Something like that, yeah.
Basically, if you do the math,
it takes up a lot of space that you could be using.
It takes the same amount of space as the state of West Virginia, which is 200 times the size of the city of Krakow, right? So there's a lot of real estate that you could use for other things than, just cars that stay in place for the majority of their time. For, again, statistically speaking, 23 hours out of the day, cars are sitting in one space. They're just, they're not being used.
Can I just make the point, though, that that's the solution? That's the future. Autonomous, very small cars, but cars that you pay on an app. They show up autonomously. They bring you to your next location. Nobody needs a fucking scooter.
I agree with you, and that's going to probably happen in well-developed countries.
Yeah.
Which apparently Poland is one of the developed countries at the moment, which I didn't know. I mean, I read about this.
You say it's 8-1 in America, 8 spaces for every car. Do you know the figure for Europe or for Poland?
It's between 3 and 5, and the parking spaces are much smaller, right? So I mean, I think it's going to be smaller by 30 to 40% when it comes to the space. But let me just finish. So I agree with you. Autonomous vehicles, great. They're going to solve a lot of problems, especially in well-developed countries like the US and Western Europe. But in 30 to 35 years from now, the largest cities in the world are not going to be either Tokyo or any other well-developed city at the moment. We're talking about medium income, medium developed countries, like, for example, Egypt.
Turkey.
No. I have specific. I have specific examples. The largest city in 30 years apparently is going to be New Delhi, 43 million people. And
Jesus,
43 million people in one city. Not all of them are going to be able to afford a car, and autonomous vehicles are not going to be, perfect in 30 years, in my opinion. So they will need to move around somehow, and this is where micromobility comes in. Obviously, it's not going to be scooters, and we're probably going to see like electric rickshaws, which are making a thing.
Yeah. That's a much better idea. But sit down in a rickshaw.
Well, yeah, but I'm sure we're going to see other vehicles in the micromobility space within a few years.
Yeah.
Don't forget about e-bikes. E-scooters are part of it. Like, we're talking about these like electric skateboards and stuff like this. So that's going to be a huge part of the transport industry within 30 years. I think the large companies, they know this is going to happen, and they're investing. If you look at where they're investing their money, it's Africa, Southeast Asia, UAE. I mean, there's a lot of money there as well. So they're hoping, basically, I think, that if they educate the market right now, is going to make a huge return in like 30 years or so.
Yeah.
Just getting people used to the idea of riding these things.
Yes.
I agree with a lot of that, like the broad vision of micromobility, but the scooter doesn't necessarily have to be part of that solution. What they've done is taken a children's toy and convinced themselves that it's going to solve a problem that doesn't really exist, in my opinion. Like you say, just use a bike, I mean, if you need to get to the train station. All we need is good bike stands where you can lock up your bike safely, with good security cameras on them. That would be a good solution.
And a bike is just a safer, more stable mode of transport.
Bike sharing programs, as long as you have, Sorry, Mike. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, it has, a bicycle, not only being cheaper, you can also stick an electric motor on them if you want to. Larger wheels means you can ride over roads that aren't as safe. Plus, there's a culture of riding bicycles has been around for decades. We still have problems with it, but it's kind of already in there. I mean, I don't understand the point of an electric scooter when you can just use a bicycle in the same kind of...
Well, actually, I don't agree with you, because the bicycle and the scooter, they cover, or they solve different problems, or a different use. It's a different use case, really. A scooter is a substitute for walking. If you need to get from A to B within, let's say, a kilometer, from a distance of 1 kilometer, or maybe let's say 1 mile, you're not going to take a bike. You might as well walk. But if you want to get there fast, you're going to use something else, probably a scooter or something.
The thing is, in Krakow, you don't have distances that long between... I mean, once you get off the tram here in the center of town, most places are within a few hundred meters of each other, and they basically flooded this part of the town with electric scooters. So basically, people are just using it to go through the Rynnek instead of in 7 minutes, in 2 minutes, which I don't really see that as being a positive.
I've been taking a kind of straw poll and just trying to note the user profile on the way to work every day. And it's nearly exclusively, as far as I can see, guys in their 20s and 30s on their way to the office that use the scooters. So it's only solving a problem for a certain section of society.
That's
the
true.
60-year-old grandmother isn't going to jump on the scooter and go down and do her shopping because it is. It's a very dangerous way of getting around, Mikey, wouldn't you say?
Well, it is. It doesn't make sense on sidewalks for other pedestrians. And once you get them out on the roads with cars and cyclists, it's also not safe because the smaller wheels aren't good if there's any like potholes or cracks. Plus, on a bicycle, when you lose stability, you kind of slow down first and you fall sideways. on one of these scooters, when you fall, you usually go face first right into traffic and much more abruptly than on a bicycle. It's a type of suicide, basically.
Wow.
No, I agree. It's very dangerous at the moment, especially that it's not regulated. And you can't, legal, as I understand right now, you can't legally use them on bike paths.
Well, because bike packs are specifically for bicycles, so no other...
It's right there in the name.
I have read certain articles though that suggest that's where the legislation is going to land.
Yes.
You're going to eventually only be able to use them on a bike path, and I have to say I think that might be the most sensible solution because A, I don't be walking on a bike path anyway, and B, they go roughly the same speed a bike and a scooter, and it actually
they go faster.
They
pass me all the time.
Yeah, they do. You know the bridge at Zabochi all the way over to Rondo Zhebrzhetska? That's a long straight run, and you see a lot of scooters there, and it seems to work fine. The bikes and the scooters going along on that bike path. So I'm happy for them to explore Krakow's bike paths together, but they make me very nervous when I'm out walking around.
I think, once the regulation is created, I think, you're just going to forget about this problem.
I'm waiting for the first step. I predict it will be within 3 months here in Krakow.
Let's be clear. At the moment, they're everywhere in the old town, the cobbles. You see tourists double riding them drunk all the
Checking
time.
Facebook,
Anytime
selfies.
I'm standing outside the Irish pub on a Friday night, you see some ridiculous shenanigans on the things.
Marcin, two things.
But I just wanted to address the death part. Sorry, but obviously someone's going to get killed. I'm sorry that I'm saying this, but it probably the only reason we're really paying attention to this right now, and not, let's say, bike deaths or car accidents, it's because it's a novelty.
Don't get me started on cyclists.
No, please don't get him started on cyclists, really.
Okay, so never mind.
So 2 questions quickly. One, to rewind, you mentioned Hulai. Remind me of the timeline. When did we see the first scooters on the streets around here? I've forgotten already.
Question, Joe.
I would say the first half of last year, so first half of 2018, something.
So we have gone through a winter already. I'm curious about the winter here, right? Did most of the scooters kind of disappear from the streets from the winter and come back in the spring, or
hibernate?
Or did they hibernate? What happened there?
They just buy new ones.
I think they have seasons. I don't know if you remember, but we had different. The way that it works with some bicycle sharing companies, that they basically. They hide the bikes in public warehouses for the winter.
Yeah, because their operating costs don't justify the income that they're going to get.
No, I don't think you're going to see any scooters during winter.
Also, I was going to ask you about something you touched on right at the start. The fact that Blinky also do electric moped rentals. I'm very curious to see if that business model could work. Is one of them durable enough to be ridden by multiple riders, not really knowing what they're doing, denting it up all the time? I wonder how long a moped, a serious piece of machinery, would last under this business model.
Well, we could ask the same question about Trafikar, the car sharing
business.
Curious
about that too. That's another stroke of madness,
But the mad part for me is that the cost of renting a car is roughly the same as renting a scooter at the moment.
Actually, for distance and time, a scooter is even more expensive than an Uber.
It is at the moment, which is like...
What are people doing? What are we doing? Renting goddamn scooters that cost more than being literally chauffeured to your destination.
In an air-conditioned car.
What the hell?
No, but I'm just going to say that I think, again, that they're educating the market, and I...
Or brainwashing, it's all terminology.
I actually work for a company that makes micromobility vehicles, and I should thank these companies for educating the people, because what happens statistically is that people don't, when they start using scooters, either from Bird or Lime, after a couple of tries, if they like it, they're actually going to buy their own.
Yeah, this is a new trend now. I've seen a few people carrying them into the office with great difficulty because they're quite heavy. They're packing them up under their arm, trying to look casual going into the lift.
And unlike bicycles, where if you look at the statistics, actually bicycles have a regular, let's say, number of people coming back and renting bikes, right? With scooters at the moment, what's happening, every third use, it's a new person. And they, after 3 uses... people usually don't come back, and they either just completely...
Because it's terrifying.
I agree with you.
And they say, I should have taken an Uber, goddammit.
Because, this is probably caused by a couple of reasons. First, at the moment, it's very expensive. By the way, I was supposed to be making a case for micromobility.
You tried to re-educate the wrong room.
bring you in, indoctrinate you, then push you out the door kind of thing. You'll be kicking a scooter on the way.
No, but I agree. At the moment, it really is. I mean, there are a lot of things that don't make sense, but I think in the long term, it's going to make a lot more sense. So, like, right now, it's very expensive. Some of the scooters that are on the market are terrible, and that's what probably is pushing people away from the concept. But then again, like, I just encourage everyone, if you want to try a decent scooter, try a Bird, and maybe you will understand what I'm trying to say, is that it might really lead to something cool.
Let me ask one thing.
English tourists, come to Krakow, ride a Bird.
Let me ask one thing about Krakow. We mentioned several times the cobblestones here. Do you think, given the urban geography of Krakow, is Krakow kind of like, do you think it's typical of a scooter use case, or is it kind of an outlier in terms of where the market, where scooters will be successful? Cities like Krakow or cities very unlike Krakow?
This is a tough question.
More.
You've got them on a run now, John.
Kind of, longer, easier straightaways with less dense traffic.
Well, obviously, scooters are only going to make an appearance in urban areas. They're not designed for any rural, large places where there are large distances between, let's say, the A and B. I think they're gonna stay here in Krakow. I'm not sure exactly how popular they're gonna be.
Sorry to interrupt. I'll tell you why I'm asking. I was in Warsaw 2 or 3 weeks ago, and in the very center of town, around the Palace of Culture, there were tons and tons and tons of scooters. Probably 30-40% of the people who were out and about in that area were on a scooter. And I think part of the reason is because there are so many. It's a large open flat area, nice wide sidewalks and bike paths and parks and whatnot. And so the urban geography is more friendly to the needs of a scooter, whereas Krakow, not so much. That's why I ask.
I agree. I agree with you. I also would like to see what's going to happen because apparently next year Uber is going to release their electric bikes here in Krakow and in Warsaw. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen with them.
So we can look forward to a flood of more electric bikes on top of the scooters, the 5,000 scooters.
Yes. So Uber recently bought a company that actually has offices here in Krakow called Jump Bikes. I don't know. You've probably seen them around Krakow. They're these red, bright red bikes.
Very look like a tank. They're very solid. Yeah.
Very, very exactly.
Heavy duty bikes. Yeah.
By the way, Bird calls their scooter a tank, but that's just never mind. Off topic.
Hard to imagine a scooter like a tank.
But it's going to be like a very mixed space. I think that these companies don't. I mean, it's as if almost that they're trying many different things to see what works. I expect these scooters to stay for the next few years, but they're probably what we're going to end up with is a mixture between a different kind of e-bikes and scooters. It's going to be a mix. It's not just going to be scooters. It's going to be a mix.
And it's going to see the tanks rolling into Poland.
I think it's funny. There's so many companies working out ways and new technologies to get us to move from point A to B. While at the same time, you have so many companies that are making us, stay at home, work at home, order everything so it comes to us. So which one is it going to be? Are we going to be moving around, or are we going to be just sitting at home?
It's usually the same companies.
Uber and Uber Eats. It's literally true, isn't it?
Yeah. All losing a fortune.
Final points to make about urban mobility, future of scooters, present day scooters, asshole people on scooters, anything like that, Marcin? He's thinking.
Warn him out, John. You warn him out.
Final thoughts on micromobility?
Final thoughts.
I still think it's the future. I don't think it's going to be. You're not going to see like a huge impact here in Krakow, but globally speaking, it's going to make a huge difference for many other cities around the world.
I think people like Dave and I, actually all of us here, we have to kind of grudgingly accept, I think what Marcin said is true. It is the future. Sometimes I feel like a farmer 100 years ago shaking my fist angrily at some Model T Ford driving by saying, what the hell are you crazy people doing?
Even Metallica aren't safe. Even Metallica aren't safe from your rage these days.
That's true. I'm on a warpath, lots of things.
I'd like to say that
it's true.
Marcin's a great sport coming in here because he knows we hate scooters. So
I actually didn't know you didn't like. I actually didn't know you don't like them. So yeah.
Well, then we apologize for being so rude.
That's going to do it for our conversation on scooters for now. Thanks, Marcin, for coming in very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll see you next time on the KrakCast.